All right, Akshay, is LinkedIn going?
No, it's still showing pre-live.
Okay. Brian, how about you for Facebook or X?
Facebook popped up, so it's live.
And how about YouTube, Akshay? Brian, how about you for Facebook or X?
Twitter
Facebook
is
popped
up.
so it's live. Yep. So I think we're good.
Okay.
LinkedIn is good too.
Akshay, Brian, how about you for Facebook or X?
Twitter is up.
So it's live.
It's significantly behind.
Facebook is up, so.
Yeah. All right, let's go code silent, please. Well, greetings, everyone. This is Mike Rochelle here with the AITP Lone Star chapter meeting for July 18th. I'm joined by Andy Ivey, our IT champion and speaker this evening, and Akshay Chopra, who's our treasurer, and Brian Williams, who's another one of our board members. Greetings, guys. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, excellent. How are you, Mike?
Doing well, doing well. So, Andy, I saw that you experienced 118 degrees in Phoenix recently. How's it there in
Hamilton? It's a beautiful day. I think it's
cool
95 compared to 118. 95 is nothing, man.
Very good, very good. Well, I'm here at in downtown Houston, taking my daughter to Rice University tomorrow for a college tour. So looking forward to that. Akshay and Brian, are you guys both in Flower Mound?
Yes, sir.
Very good, very good. Well, I'm really excited about this evening, and I'm going to share the slides here. We have been back since May, and had a couple of really great champions meeting with us. What I'd like to do is to just talk a little bit about what AITP Lone Star is. Back in 1951, an organization started and became multiple names. AITP then went away as a brand with CompTIA for a few years, but fortuitously in April of this year, they gave us the brand back. So we're back, as the first slide says. It's about professional networking. It's about leadership and education in people, process, and technology innovation, and partner events that you'll hear about after Andy has concluded his presentation. Really would love to have any of you on LinkedIn or Facebook, YouTube, or X to ask questions. We should get those questions, and we'll add them at the end after Andy has regaled us with his wonderful conversation regarding cybersecurity and business advantage. Brian or Akshay, do one of you want to talk a little bit about membership, as Harish is in India attending to some family business?
So guys, as Mike mentioned, we are back in business as an AITP Lone Star. It's just $6.99 for a cup of coffee you guys spend at Starbucks. You can get the monthly membership, and we're pretty happy if you can be joining our group. We'll be having a lot of other options. We'll be having partner events and all. So, Mike, all yours.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Akshay. Appreciate you jumping in. I forgot to go through these and talk a little bit about them. Brian, we'll get to you in a little bit. What I'd like to do, though, is introduce Andy Ivey. I've known Andy for over a decade. He's been a bulwark in the IT community here in Dallas and recently moved to Hamilton. So he's spreading the goodness into other communities, has some really storied things that if you look on my YouTube channel, you'll see a couple of interviews. One about how he became a school board member, and another one, which is a case study. So this will be his best ever yet, I'm sure. He is currently the CIO at Carollo Engineers, and handles all of their technology needs with a great team of people that I've met. I think just about every one of them. Yep. So Andy, thanks very much for coming out today. I'm going to bring up your slides and ask you to share with us that which you plan to share.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much.
I have a pretty light slide deck for everybody. We are tonight going to take the easy way, the easy path. And it's going to be the easy way to delivering as much value as we can to you in as little time as possible. So hyper efficient evening. And I just want to thank AITP Lone Star chapter for making this time available to me. And also we're being broadcast on KCLW 900 AM in Hamilton. So that is the voice of Hamilton County, and just such a great place to live. If you're looking for something to do this year, we have Dove Fest coming up in early September. Great little vacation for your family here in Central Texas. Come on down to the Hill Country and see us. So let's talk about cybersecurity. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you would get caught up to your competitors in this space, and then how you get ahead of them and what type of advantage I think you'll see for your organization once you do that. And so, Mike, my slides have moved on here. There we go. That is my Roomba. And that Roomba did try to escape. Those of you on the radio can't see this. It's a picture of a Roomba trying to go out the door. It did organically happen. And I decided that this would be a fun way to kind of display the challenges I had with AI when I asked it, hey, how would you deliver this speech? So I went to our pals at Bing and said, hey, Bing AI, how would you explain to people how they could get some important investments in cybersecurity and what sort of benefits they would see, or why would they invest in their cybersecurity in their organization? And it came up with some pretty decent answers. The first one was protecting sensitive data. You might hear these called crown jewels. So your crown jewels are the most important things to your organization, and you might invest in some tools that would protect your crown jewels, your most important data, or your most important systems. Maintaining reputation. I think the sting of having a cybersecurity event is less than it used to be. Uh, and nowadays, we all sort of understand that each one of us is probably going to have a cybersecurity event, a negative event in our environment. It's sort of inevitable. But what you don't want to do is have one that is embarrassing, where it looks like you weren't prepared or that you hadn't done something appropriate. You want to prepare as best you can and sort of accept that you are going to have some sort of event and you need to be in a position to respond to it as well as you can. So far, I'm not complaining about the ideas that AI gave us. Avoiding financial loss, obviously, cybersecurity events are very expensive. We want to try to keep those to a minimum. Zero would be great. Compliance with regulations. Why? Because regulators are not fun. And so we would definitely want to stay on the appropriate side of any regulations that apply to your business. Ensuring business continuity. Obviously, if you have a cybersecurity event, you are damaging your ability to make, move, and sell whatever product or services your business is engaged in. Building investor confidence. If you have investors, they most likely want to make sure that you aren't going to be sitting on the sidelines spending money trying to get back up to speed, recovering from an event. It would be far better for everybody to avoid those altogether. And then the last thing it said, hey, why would a company maybe invest in cybersecurity? AI said to stay ahead of threats, which, yeah, not a terrible answer. Staying ahead of threats actually, once you get in a pretty good position with your cybersecurity footing in your organization, you're going to spend more and more energy on trying to figure out what's next. So I decided, hey, man, AI is doing pretty good here. Could it write this speech for me? And here I'm being digitized, and I survived. I survived the digitization. I'm still in one piece. So I asked AI, hey, what sort of competitive advantages would an organization see investing in cybersecurity? And they said a lot of things that they said about why you would just invest in cybersecurity in general. They said enhance customer trust. So I would say that that is signaling to your customer that you are trustworthy, you're worthy of connecting to their systems or being entrusted with their data. Brand reputation, obviously, you don't want to be a target, and it's you don't want to be a joke either. When people need an example, they always say your company name, like the poor folks at Target. Operational efficiency, that's a repeat from the first slide. AI is really good at repeating things. Regulatory compliance, again, heard that one already. Cost savings, why? Because events are expensive. Innovation and growth, I thought this was a really interesting answer. The idea here is that if you invest and have a mature cybersecurity practice in your organization, that you can adopt new technology faster than your competitors. But guess what? That's not true. We all know that a company that has a very weak cybersecurity practice can actually adopt technologies way faster than all of us. Why? Because they skip all the steps where, where you would go and see if a technology was something you wanted to embrace. So in that case, AI got it wrong. AI said, hey, you want to invest in cybersecurity so you can more quickly embrace new technology. No, nobody embraces new technology as quickly as someone who has very weak cybersecurity. So I don't think we can trust AI to write this speech. So unfortunately, I just had to do it myself. So we got to get our hands dirty. And would have loved for Bing to have written the speech for me, but it turns out that's not the case. What we want to focus on is an idea that it didn't come up with, and that is the idea of competitive differentiation. Differentiation is such a difficult word to say in a speech. But that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to differentiate your organization from your competitors so that your customers choose you and not them. And since AI is not going to write this speech, I'm going to go ahead and did it for you. And I'm going to tell you that where you want to start is with a cybersecurity roadmap. And if you already have one, awesome. But you may suffer from analysis paralysis. That is, that if even if you have a plan, you may have an overthinking problem, which is what analysis paralysis means. That you have mired yourself in the weeds and have too many things on your plate. But if you don't have a roadmap, or if you have too complicated of a roadmap, I have some ideas on how you can get a really simple one. And that is you can get one delivered to you for free from your cyber insurance carrier. If you don't have cybersecurity insurance, you need to probably log off, call your lawyer, call your legal team, and go secure a policy ASAP. That should be the number one thing you do. And the interesting thing about your cyber insurance carrier is they're going to give you a list of things they want you to do. And if you don't have a cybersecurity roadmap, they are basically handing you one, because they're going to give you a list of about 20 things they want your organization to do. MFA, encryption at rest, probably encryption in transit, unfortunately, which is going to be expensive to do probably. But they're going to give you a list of things they want you to do. You're going to be able to say, hey, we already do 10 of these. We don't do the other 10. And guess what your roadmap is now? It's the other 10. So you chart a path where, hey, over the next year and a half, 2 years, you really should be as quick as possible, though. You're going to embrace the requirements that they have. That's going to drive your cyber insurance policy to be cheaper. So your premiums are going to be less, which is good for everybody, but it's going to improve your cybersecurity footing. So you get a free roadmap from your insurance carrier. That's a great way to think about doing business with them. Other people that can give you a free roadmap are your customers. So it's increasingly common for customers to come to an organization with a checklist and say, hey, we want you to fill this out, a questionnaire, and we want you to tell us what you do to secure your environment. And then we will decide if you're a trustworthy partner or not. So there's a customer delivering to you exactly what they expect from you. And you want to answer all of those questions correctly. But if you can't, you want to put those on your roadmap, prioritize them, and get it to where you can answer those correctly as quickly as possible. So here you have your insurance carrier and your customer giving you a free roadmap to improving your cybersecurity posture in your organization. Other places that can give you this, but they're going to be far less valuable, is your industry. You may have peers or regulators or an industry association that is giving you guidance. That is kind of hit and miss, but it is out there. Financial auditors, as they're doing your financial audits for your accounting department, may give you some cybersecurity advice. Investors may give it to you, just like a customer, where they're giving you a questionnaire that's going to drive your decisions. And business partners, and even in some cases now, vendors will start to give you these. And all of this is simply going to get you caught up. And caught up, unfortunately, is not competitive advantage. So if you get your cyber insurance carrier to give you the 20 things that they think you need to do, and you do all 20, congratulations, you're now just run of the mill. You're now just average. You've just caught up. You're not actually better than anyone else, because they're telling you what they think everyone should be doing. And so if you do all that, congratulations, you are caught up. That's great. But that's not what we're here tonight to talk about. We're here tonight to talk about how do you get ahead and beat the mess out of your competition. And so you need to create a situation where you are setting the standard for your client, for your customer, where you are making that standard so high that your competitors struggle to reach it, struggle to catch up. And so you are creating what's called a captive market, and you're doing it voluntarily, which is the right way to do it. So you're voluntarily getting a customer to agree with you that some stringent cybersecurity standard that you've adopted is the best one. And since you've done it, you're the only person trustworthy to do business with, and your competitors now have to catch up. And that period of time between now and when your competitors catch up is where you have a captive market. And that's what we're trying to create for you here tonight. And there's a couple of ways to do this. And all of it kind of requires shifting your perspective. So what we're saying is, hey, you caught up, right? You got your insurance carrier or whoever, your customer gave you a questionnaire, you did all those things, and you're feeling pretty good about your cybersecurity footing. And now you want to make some headway. Well, there's some basic ground rules on how you go about doing this the best. And the first is you need to adopt a cybersecurity footing that is super easy to explain to someone, like an elevator pitch, where very quickly and easily someone who is not a technology professional can understand what you're talking about. Why? Because you are trying to arm your sales and marketing team, who are not IT people, with information about your cybersecurity practices in your organization. And you need it to be easy for them to consume and easy for them to relay to the customer. And then it needs to be super easy for the customer to understand. We're talking bulletproof. So whatever you do, to differentiate yourself from your competitors needs to be very easy to understand. That is a rule that we're going to use moving forward tonight as we vet what you might do to be the best. So make sure your sales and marketing team can understand it, that your customer can understand it, and understand in very simple terms why you are a cybersecurity leader and why you should get their work, which is really what we're all after, right? Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this. 3 actually are what I'm going to propose to you. Now, the good thing about these 3, these are industry frameworks, is what I'm going to propose you adopt. So, in this scenario, right, you've caught up to all your industry peers, you're on an equal footing with them, cybersecurity wise. We're looking for a way for you to get ahead. And the easiest way to do that is to adopt an already established industry framework like NIST, SOC 2, or ISO 27001. And I'm going to explain what those 3 are. Here's the beauty of these 3. They're 96% similar. They share 96% of the controls, and these 3 standards are all the same. So you really, in a sense, can't go wrong between the 3. You could choose any one of the 3, but I'm going to tell you the pros and cons of each one. But the goal is to adopt one of these standards, and these standards are basically best practices, technologies, and processes that you're going to adopt within your organization. You're basically going to take what the industry says is kind of the best way to securely run a technology system. You're going to embrace that, and you're going to go win one of these certifications. And we'll talk about, they aren't actually all certifications. And these will be very simple things for you to explain to a customer. So what's the first one? NIST. NIST is an interesting standard. It's called NIST CSF to be exact. But NIST is something that you will often hear a client say, hey, we want everyone we do business with to be NIST certified. Here's the problem. There is no such thing as NIST certification. Your organization cannot be NIST certified. That is not possible. It's not a thing. And as soon as a client or customer comes to you and says, hey, we want you to be NIST certified, you know that you are about to have a very challenging conversation, because this happens all the time. All the time. I cannot tell you how often a client comes to me and says, hey, we want you to be NIST. And I'm like, buddy, that's not a thing. And now we have to have a conversation in a very polite way where I explain to you why that's not a thing. And the reason is NIST itself does not certify anybody. You can get a third party to attest that you are NIST aligned. But what does that mean? It's just a random third party that you've hired that says, hey, yeah, we think that this guy over here does all the things in the NIST standard that are in there. Well, how are you going to explain that to a customer, that some random third party is saying that you're compliant with this standard? That's going to be a really hard sell, and it violates the premise that this needs to be very easy to understand for a client, your sales team, and your marketing team. And NIST is a very murky area. Now, if you do DoD work with the federal government, you already know about something called FISMA, and you're already doing NIST, because if you are under the Federal Information Security Management Act, which is what FISMA stands for, you wouldn't be listening to my presentation because you've already been certified. You don't need Andy Ivey. You are already doing this. But I want to warn you that NIST is something that very immature organizations are going to throw out there, because it's a buzzword. It's a known thing. If you look at how the Department of Defense does cybersecurity, NIST is going to be thrown around there. So people assume it's the best, and they'll say, hey, well, is your organization NIST? And unfortunately, there's nothing you can do but educate your client on, no, that's not actually appropriate. But there are other ways we can show you that we are cybersecurity leaders. And SOC 2 is probably a great way to do that. Now, those of you who can see the slides get to see a beautiful pair of socks. That is not what SOC 2 stands for. And SOC 2 is also, unfortunately, not a certification. SOC 2 is also an attestation, just like NIST, where a third party is saying, yeah, these guys are SOC 2, everything's good. The difference between attestation for NIST and SOC is that everyone understands SOC 2. Anyone who's ever heard of SOC 2 understands that it's an attestation and knows a third party has vetted you and it's just accepted. And it's not necessarily a drawback for SOC 2 that it's a third party that's basically certifying. that you have adopted kind of roughly industry best practices for cybersecurity. And so this is probably a more valuable attestation, more valuable certification. Use that word loosely because it's not really a certification. SOC 2 is going to be much more common when organizations are trying to prove their cybersecurity footing to a client. The problem is SOC 2 is a US certification primarily. It has very little acceptance internationally, or much less acceptance internationally than the third one we're about to tell you about. It's also the most flexible certification, which is good and bad. The way to think about SOC 2 is I am having a third party certify that what I say I do with cybersecurity, I actually do. But what they aren't saying is that what I do is the best in class or in industry best practice. They're simply saying that Andy says he encrypts his data at rest and he has MFA. We, a third party, have proven that yes, he really does. He's not lying. And here's a piece of paper where we certify that he's doing that, or we attest that he's doing that. But what they don't do is they don't say, hey, all of these things he does, like MFA and securing encrypting data at rest, are industry best practices. And so that's where SOC 2 falls a little bit short, is that SOC 2 still requires you to educate the customer on what exactly SOC 2 is saying. And the customer still has to sit down and decide, if they're savvy, does this SOC 2 certification really cover everything that we want it to cover? It's good, but it's not perfect. But you could still beat the pants off of your competitors by getting SOC 2 certified as an organization. The last one that I want to talk about is going to be kind of the gold standard, and it's ISO 27001. ISO is far more accepted internationally, universally understood internationally. In fact, if anything, because SOC 2 is so popular in the US, ISO is less known in the US, although it's gaining exposure rapidly, because it is a true certification. And what does that mean? You implement a standard, a rigid standard, a very rigid standard, and this isn't going to be for everybody, because if you go look at the standard, you are adopting some cybersecurity practices that are going to make the everyday life of your users a little bit more cumbersome. But you are going to be adopting what is universally understood to be industry best practices, and you're going to be adopting those in a very rigid way. But you implemented a standard, so you're doing all of the best things that we all agree are the best things to do in cybersecurity, and you're audited by a third party, and then you have an independent certifying body that reviews the audit. That's what makes ISO 27001 kind of the bulletproof standard here, because it is a true certification against a standard, and there is a completely neutral independent body that is reviewing the audit. So if a client comes to you and says, hey, what do you do with your cybersecurity? You hand them your ISO 27001 certificate, which took you probably a full year or a year and a half to earn, and the conversation's over, you win. And that's been the goal of our talk tonight, is how do you take an organization and get it to the point where its IT organization is winning work for your company, where you are winning customers, where you are winning clients. And the way to win clients is, one of the ways is to show them that you can be trusted with their data. You can be trusted to connect to their systems, whatever your interaction is with a client that IT would play in. Maybe they're storing some of their personal data with you, that you have the ability here to prove to them very quickly with as little words as possible, hey, I'm trustworthy. But if you do SOC 2 instead, you're still doing pretty good. And if you do NIST, good luck to you. So let me tell you what the formula is that we've given you here tonight. All right, it's a little winning formula. You're going to find out what your stakeholders want. That's your clients, your customers. They're going to tell you, because they're going to send you a questionnaire. Your insurance carrier, remember, they're going to tell you what you want to do. You're going to do all that, and you're going to get caught up. And then you're going to figure out a way to get ahead. And I'm proposing that you adopt a industry framework like SOC 2 or ISO 27001. But here's the rub, and this is the reason why all these guys are popping back into the chat. This is only going to get you ahead until your competitors go and embrace SOC 2 or ISO 27001. Then guess what? You're just the same as them again, and you have to find some new way to get ahead. And that is what I'm hoping these guys can come in here and maybe talk about how they think some ways that an organization who maybe enjoyed a little bit of a lead in the cybersecurity space with their clients now have their competitors caught up, or maybe by the time you're ISO certified, all your competitors are as well. What would you do next to kind of stay in the lead and be seen as the cybersecurity leader in your space? Mike, you have any thoughts on that?
Can you repeat the question? I was just typing a question to ask you.
Yes, sir. I was wanting to invite you guys in and say, hey, if you embrace SOC 2, let's say, and you enjoyed a little bit of maybe a year or two where you were a leader in your industry and you were the only one that was SOC 2 certified, and all your clients out there thought that, hey, man, you're the best. You're the only one that takes security seriously. But then all of a sudden, all of your competitors catch up and they're SOC 2 or they're ISO certified as well. What would you do after that to stay ahead?
Well, I mean, the only experience that I've had doing this was Y2K certification back in the day. And I had my JD Edwards instances for 40 or 50 customers done about a year in advance of that problem. Nobody could catch up, right? There was no way to do that. To go beyond that, I think what I could do is I could market the heck out of it, which we did at CB Richard Ellis, right? And let people know that not only have you received the certification, but perhaps you've had the recertification, because I think you're going to be, if you've been ahead for a year or two, the recertification comes next, correct?
Yeah, you're on a 3-year cycle with ISO.
Yeah.
And that is not a lightweight process.
Yeah. So that's my question, and I'll ask that in just a minute. But Akshay or Brian, do you guys have any answer for Andy?
No, like just to like add on to what you mentioned, Mike, like a recertification for sure. But then technology is evolving every like 6 months to 9 months. So cybersecurity, like when you see from a technology perspective, it's pretty like a new, right? People are adopting the technology like right now. So if things change, something new comes up, right? If you're already ahead of the game, it definitely gives you a good like a add-on advantage to adopt the new technologies.
Exactly.
So Andy, do you have another answer that you were trying to get out of us that we didn't answer?
I think those are excellent answers. I would say that you've got to keep sight on the customer. And so your customer is actually going to probably signal to you what they think is next, although they may not, but they could signal to you where they think you need to invest. But more likely, your industry peers, you're going to need to take a leadership role in your industry and probably be more collaborative. I've talked about kind of beating your competitors up and being competitive and kind of having a war mentality that you're going to go capture a market. But once you're in the lead and you see them catching up, I think you can shift to a collaborative approach, join industry associations, try to shape the direction, because when you're a leader, you act very different than when you're not. So I've been talking about how to put you in a position of being a market leader. Once you're a market leader, I think you want to try to shape your industry, and using an association like AITP, or if you go and run in circles with some CISSPs, those guys, I happen to be one, but those guys are pretty serious folks. That you would probably take a tact of trying to keep setting that flag out in front of you, but being more collaborative with your industry.
So one of my friends from YouTube has answered the question. It's Dave West. He and I went to undergraduate together a long time ago. He says it allows your customers to know that they're working with people, not just a company, who know a lot about security. So that was, I think, his answer to that.
Yeah, wise words from Dave West.
Yeah, another part to his statement was, besides whole company security certifications like SOC 2, ISO 27001, you could also have your employees get certifications like CISSP, etc.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see this challenge coin. I actually happen to have this by my desk. I flew all 47 people that work in my IT organization to Phoenix last year, and I had 8 hours of cybersecurity training. And we had vendors come in and basically give us the sales pitch for every cybersecurity tool we use in our organization. So they came and talked to us about BitLocker because we use BitLocker. They came and talked to us about, we use the full Microsoft stack, right? So a good chunk of the day was them talking to us for in 30-minute chunks about each of the tools as if they were trying to sell it to us, because I needed the whole IT organization to have kind of a general understanding of all these tools, all of the networking stuff. So we took up a full 8-hour day, and then we issued everyone 8 CEUs, 8 continuing education hours, and we issued them a Carollo IT cybersecurity certificate. So it's not the same as like being CompTIA Security Plus, but it was able to get the cybersecurity knowledge of my entire organization, from the service desk all the way to the network architects, on the same page on what tools we use and why.
Beautiful. Andy, we have one other question, and Brian, you're gonna go ahead and ask it since you're the one that's doing it.
Oh yeah. So for those companies that have never completed an ISO certification process, is it fairly costly to do that? And what, just high level, what does that look like in implementing something like that?
Excellent question. It can be insanely expensive, but don't do it that way. You scope your certification to a specific, usually a specific IT system. You can do it to a location. I would recommend doing it to a specific IT system. And my favorite one to do it for is your backup system. Why? Because your backup system sees all of your data. And you kind of need to secure your backup system. If you've ever been involved in a cyber attack and you lose your backup system, you might as well close the doors of the organization, because it's real hard to come back. So you could certify a really tight-knit environment like your backup system and greatly simplify your certification, where you're doing it for maybe 30, 40 grand. Now, we're a 1,500 person organization, 40, 50 sites across the US. So to give you an idea, 30, 40 grand, 2 FTEs for a year to get certified, and then to recertify, cut that in half. So 1 FTE and 15 grand or so. But this can get very out of hand if you scope it to be more of your organization than you need to. And I would definitely advise you not to start off easy.
Good tip.
Andy, the question that I was going to ask you earlier is here. So you already answered how much work it is with those 2 questions already. But is that all there is the next question, which is there anything more that you can do, which kind of gets to your question to me, right?
Yeah, you'll
so
find.
What else are you guys doing?
ISO 27001 seems so perfect and so challenging and so difficult, just like the CISSP exam. If you know anybody that's a CISSP, they're like, oh, it's the hardest exam in IT. Everybody fails. It's got a less, half the people that take it don't make it. But then once you pass it, you're like, wow, man, there's so much more to cybersecurity than what that test covered. Same with ISO, where it's like, man, I'll never get ISO certified, even SOC 2. I'll never get SOC 2. It's just so difficult. It's so cumbersome. How do you eat an elephant? Well, you just one little bite at a time. Keep your head down. Don't think about how big it is. Just keep your head down and keep churning away. And before you know it, you'll be done. But once you're done and you're like, wow, I'm an industry leader, right? I'm ISO 27001. Nobody else in my industry is. I'm the best. And then you realize, wow, man, but it's like, I've still got so much more I have to do. I still have to have an MSP help me at night, watch all my alerts. I'm still trying to tune all my systems because I'm getting too many alerts. Oh, I still have a hole in this system over here. My DMZ isn't designed how I want it to be. Hey, my network equipment is going end of life and it has a bug and I need to replace it. It's funny how when you become an expert at something, you realize how little you actually know.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this one question. So what are some of the more popular type of attacks you're seeing out there, and from where that we're trying to prevent?
Yeah, so interesting, because it's going to touch on a pet peeve of mine. If you read these articles about cybersecurity events, they always put Russia in the title. Russia attacks American water plant. And then you read the article looking for, hey, how'd they figure out Russia did this? And you find out they didn't. It's a guess. It's a guess. Or someone routed traffic through Russia. Dude, anybody can route traffic through Russia. And so it's clickbait. So that's something, if you're trying to read these articles about common attacks, you have to be super critical about what you're reading, because they're journalists who are trying to write articles for a broad audience, and it's very light on details. So I would say still the most common thing is attacking all of our user logins, which we have MFA. So, it's just sport to watch the hundreds and thousands of login attempts. But the one that's still sadly the most effective is getting a user to click on a pop-up where they think it's Microsoft tech support or some sort of tech support, and they allow someone to either install something on their system or to remote into their system. We thankfully have tools here that we pick that up, and we basically cut your computer off the network automatically. So it doesn't require a human to look at the event. Your computer just disappears from the network. But sadly, I think industry-wide, people are still the biggest risk.
What about ransomware attacks? Are you seeing those?
Yeah, well, that's how they're getting in. So they get it. So they either have you install something off a web pop-up, or they have you allow them to remote in thinking they're Microsoft, and they're starting a ransomware attack from there. And that's their foothold in. They're going to move laterally across your network, or they may stop and map your network. And there's thankfully tools that can pick up on that occurring. You can segment your network to try to cut down on that. We use some tools. Some of them are Microsoft tools that are really great at just understanding the signature of that's unusual activity. That PC doesn't normally go look at that segment of the network. And again, having something that doesn't require a human to turn it off, so where it's automatically cutting them off the network. I'd rather do that to someone by accident than not.
Interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, Akshay, I think you have a question too. Sorry, I didn't see yours, Brian, when you first asked it.
So, Andy, I have a question. As you had mentioned, and I also I did some research last year on the SOC 2 and ISO 27001. The question to you is, when the ISO 27001 is worldwide accepted, I see a lot of our US companies enforcing their vendors to get SOC 2 compliance. Mm-hmm. Why?
Yeah. Don't try to make sense of it. Just do both. I don't do both. I've been able to talk my way out of SOC 2 because I'm like, dude, I did ISO, it's better. But honestly, if you can do both, because you don't want to have to talk to a client and tell them, you're kind of telling them they're wrong. They're like, oh, I want you to be SOC 2. And you're like, no, you don't. Who am I to tell a customer they're wrong? But I don't have the bandwidth to go get both. I've got bigger fish to fry, but if you can do both, do them. SOC 2 is cheaper and faster and easier to get, in my opinion. You can do that in half the time for
I totally
not half
agree.
The money.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Andy, on this one, because we have seen situations we are a service-oriented company, an IT service consulting firm, right? And sometimes when you're dealing with procurement, they have to do that check mark on the SOC 2. So sometimes it becomes very difficult to negotiate or convince them till the time you don't involve people you from the IT organization to come and help the procurement or the sourcing groups.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And I have one more question. If a company is HIPAA compliant or certified, do they still need to have SOC 2/27001 certification, or
yes,
they go hands in hands?
Nope. HIPAA does not get you anywhere. HIPAA's table stakes in that industry, in that niche area. So there's other ones too. There's PCI if you're handling credit card data. You just have to do that because of the industry you're in. There's what is it called? High tech. There's another one for the
cloud-based companies.
Yeah. So if you're doing DoD work, but you're not actually handling secret or top secret data. So yes, there's a lot of those out there that I would assume if that applies to you, you're like the PCI guys did that 20 years ago, right? Or 15 years ago, maybe to be more accurate. The HIPAA guys did it 10 years ago. If you're doing anything in Europe, you've already dealt with the privacy regulations. I think the We'll see some interesting privacy stuff happen in the US. You see it at the state level here already. I think California led the way. Wyoming or somewhere weird passed some pretty stringent privacy laws. So privacy will probably be the next one. But no, HIPAA doesn't get you anywhere. It's not a very broad, from a cybersecurity standpoint, certification.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So Brian, you had another question.
Yeah. So somebody asked one time, is using the public cloud now making companies more vulnerable to these cyber attacks?
Well, the thing I like about using public cloud is if Microsoft is down, I'm down, right? Or if AWS is down, I'm down. But no one's going to blame me, right? Because they're like, oh, Microsoft's like the whole world's down if Azure's down, the whole world's down if AWS is down. So who's going to like complain about Andy, right? And so you get some free cover, you get some free. You're like, oh, this isn't my fault. This is a Microsoft outage, and you get a pass. It's the wildest thing. Because if I was in my own data center and my data center went down, all my clients would be Andy's terrible CIO. Look at his systems are all down. But if I have it in Azure and Azure goes down, everybody's like, yeah, man, it just sucks. That's just how it is. But does it make you more vulnerable? It does. It does make your IT environment more complex, and complexity is bad. And there's a very interesting trend of companies pulling their stuff back out of the public cloud back into their data center because they're not saving money. Like we all were told we were going to save money, and we didn't. None of us saved money. Well, maybe a couple of us figured it out, but so you're basically have a far more complex environment. I wouldn't blame a company for getting at least their infrastructure as a service stuff back out of the cloud. I think SaaS and PaaS stuff is great. I would consume as much SaaS as I can. You're spreading risk to organizations that are going to be way better at cybersecurity than you are. I do a good job, but I'm no Microsoft. You know, like they're way better at cybersecurity than I am.
So I have another question for you, Andy.
Yes, sir.
Since we're simulcasting on Hamilton Radio, do you want to tell them what's coming on Saturday?
Oh, buddy, we landed in an excellent radio show Saturday. So I do a weekly radio show here in Hamilton, which is literally the greatest place on earth. You got to get down here for DovFest. DovFest is just, it's a generational thing. People that have moved away still come back for DovFest. It's just a good small town. It's everything you think. It's concerts, rodeo, all the cool small town stuff. Yes, it'll be 110 degrees, but you'll survive. This Saturday, we actually have a discussion going on in our community about how to pay for maintaining our county roads and what is the best way to do that. It's kind of controversial for us. Those of you in the big city don't know what a county road is, but us in rural areas, out of the incorporated town, you have a very different road structure, and how that's maintained is it's maintained by your county government. There are a couple of different ways of doing that. And we have some former politicians who are coming on the show to tell us how they think it should be done, which is different than how we do it. And it's one of those things that can divide a rural community. And we're going to try to tackle that sensitive topic in the best way we can. But it's one of those amazing stories that folks in Dallas, Austin, Houston, El Paso don't know about, don't understand the challenge of maintaining basically dirt roads. They're not actually dirt, but in your mind, you can think of it like that. So we're going to figure out how to do that. We have $20 million roughly of road damage from a storm. And you won't believe this, but we don't have $20 million.
I can't imagine why.
There's only 8,000 people in the whole county.
And then for those who are local, where are you going to be broadcasting from?
We are going to be at Daiquiris to Go, Dynamite Daiquiris to Go, which how awesome is it that a town of 2,000 people has a dedicated daiquiri store?
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have the coolest stuff here, man. It's a town of 2,000 that acts like a town of 10. And it really does punch above its weight class. And that's why it's so great for tourists. And tourists are part of how we're able to have so much cool stuff. You've been in Pecan Creek Outfitters, which are having a trivia night tonight that I'm missing. I had to sacrifice and be with you guys instead of doing trivia night at the town clothing store, which has a bar in the back.
Very good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've actually
they serve
been
beer
there.
and Wranglers. They get you a
Yeah.
pair of Wrangler jeans and a beer.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So, in your spare time, beside running your own ranch and working full time, you also found a situation where you needed to get onto the school board. You did that about a year ago. For those, and your video and Vivek Kashyap's keep swapping back and forth as far as my most viewed video.
I'll have to go watch Vivek's.
What's happened? Well, you're kicking it up. So what's happened in the last year since you joined the school board, and kind of summarize that, if you will.
Yeah, I had no idea that public school in Texas would be so controversial or so in the spotlight. As you know, school choice is such a hot topic right now. And so joining a school board during that is kind of wild. There is no private school here. So school choice is kind of like a semantic, it's not a real conversation for us. But it is fun to watch. I'm in the middle of writing a book about it's fiction, but it really explores the complexities of rural small town life. I think it's something that, being raised in Dallas, that is a totally different world and something that's very beautiful and complex. And so I'm going to write a fictional story about some characters who run afoul of it, but then also it sort of saves them. So we're going to kind of play off both sides of the complexities of rural life. I think you can imagine a very tight-knit small community can have a lot of things happen different, where, like, if you live in Dallas, you can just disappear, right? If you live in Austin, you can just change neighborhoods and start over, right? Well, you can't do that in a small town. And so there's a lot of interesting stuff. We'll hopefully have, the book went to an editor yesterday. So it's currently being bled all over by a professional. I'm very nervous about that. But yeah, we're on the radio once a week on Saturdays. It's called Lunchtime Buzz. It's kind of a fun show. We're on the school board, very active in my church. This is just, small town life is amazing. And it's the silver lining of COVID and the lockdowns and being able to work remote. And I can still get to an airport, which, was in Denver 2 weeks ago, Phoenix last week. I'll be in Boise this week, which is a super expensive place to fly. $800 for no reason at all. But, it's a beautiful world we live in, where you can get to Boise, Idaho, in like 2 hours. Man, isn't that awesome?
Not bad at all. Well, Andy, the interesting thing is that I've been able to see you grow as a leader over the years, and your ability to take a very complex topic, really capsulize what that topic is, I think was greatly demonstrated tonight. And really appreciate you sharing with us about cybersecurity and the business advantage that I think you guys are going to have for quite a while. It's a great thing that you've done. Yeah.
And so winning work is awesome for an IT guy, buddy.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think you'll continue doing that. So I'll look forward to touching base with you next time. But I appreciate you, and you're welcome to stay with us as we go through kind of the chapter business. And
go for it, man. I need to go renew my membership. Maybe I should do that while I'm watching you do this.
Well, you know what? Now that you said that, let me show you how to do it. So all you have to do is go to meetup.com, and it's AITP Lone Star. And it is an annual. We didn't do the monthly Akshay just because it's administratively heavy. But for a year, it's $91. So it's a really good deal. And as we continue to grow, we're going to have some great events and other things. So thanks very much for coming out today. We really appreciate you.
Happy to be here, buddy. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
So our mission is to provide superior leadership in education and information technology. I think what Andy did for us tonight was really take a very technical and detailed process that he's gone through with his team, and really engaged his entire team in making this win happen. It was really incredible. So thanks very much for that. And we're gonna continue doing that. We also are dedicated to using the synergy of information technology partners to provide education and benefits to our members. So we'll get that going here in just a second as well. We just heard from Andy, some of our other IT champions that are coming along. Clay Aina's event is already scheduled on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, so you can go check that out. If you go to Meetup and join as a member, it'll automatically connect you to the YouTube version of the event. But I saw Dave on there, so I know that works. We'll also in September have Rusty Kennington. Many of you know Rusty. He's spoken at AITP many times and has provided us with great information. He's going to be talking about the insights of a 3-time private equity chief information officer. Joe Vaughn is going to talk about some really cool things that he's doing at MoneyGram in October. And then Renee Arrington, COO and president at Pearson Partners International, is going to talk about the board's quest for tech-forward leadership, steering transformation at the C-suite helm. So we're looking forward to that and invite you to join so you don't miss them. Akshay, you recently joined ThemeSoft, and you're our first partner to have a happy hour. So you want to talk a little bit about it and how people can sign up?
Yeah, sure, Mike. So all the AITP members are welcome to join us on August 22nd at 5 p.m. at Boomer Jacks. We'll be sharing a link through our AITP LinkedIn probably in next 2 or 3 days for the sign up.
Okay, perfect. Yep. And where is Boomer Jacks, just for those that are not living in the DFW area?
Oh yeah, so Boomer Jacks we are going to be doing at the Grapevine location. It's centrally located within the DFW metropolis, 2 minutes from the airport, DFW airport.
Yeah. And this will be our second in person. Our first was when we were at, let's see, where's the next slide? I'll go to this one. When we were at Elevate IT back in June. So it'll be the first time for us to touch base in nearly 3 months. In September, we're going to be at the Houston Technology Summit for Elevate IT. So for those of you in the Houston area, look forward to seeing you there. As I've mentioned a couple of times, Meetup is our site. So Leadership In is the company that's actually managing all of our broadcasts and things like that. So you have all of the wonderful conversations that I have from a body, mind, and spirit perspective with my customers and partners. And then also the AITP meetings are being broadcast by us. But you'll notice that membership is only through Meetup. So if you go to meetup.com and look for AITP Lone Star, you'll see the AITP Lone Star ecosystem. And that Akshay and I are actually working to get his organization into that ecosystem, and looking forward to that with many others as well. Brian, you want to talk a little bit about how we're doing this from a statewide perspective as well as local?
Sure. Yeah. This is what's nice about this is from the perspective of focused on anybody in Texas, right? So there's so many companies and groups and areas in Austin, San Antonio, as well as Houston and Dallas, and that gives us an opportunity to, meet with like-minded Texans, if you will. And this is
absolutely
an idea that I love, because I'm, born and bred a Texan. I don't know if you guys are, but I love Texas, and I've always been here and lived pretty close to where I was born and raised. So I love that. And I love meeting people from Texas, but also like the new people that have come here as fast as they could, as they say, and get to the opportunity to spend time in towns like Hamilton. What a wonderful courthouse it has, a historic courthouse. And it's a beautiful town, by the way. Thanks, Andy. And Texas has so much to offer from the area, from the universities, opportunities to meet and greet people at different universities that can benefit from networking with an organization such as this. So it's a great opportunity to be a part of this, as well as companies. One thing that's nice about AITP is it's with any industry. It can be with any in Houston, for instance, we have a lot of oil and gas. In Dallas, very diverse area. Austin has its electronics, and obviously the automobile area with Tesla and Toyota and things of that nature as well. So there's just so much opportunity to be engaged and be a part of this. And I hope you, anybody that's listening, would want to be a part of this and can really help grow their network, grow their, and even grow their brand. As you get out there in the market and you're advertising yourself, you're looking for jobs, you're looking for opportunities. It's a great way to expand your brand and your marketing as you get out there into the marketplace. So definitely would love to have anybody aboard.
Absolutely. And if you notice, it says localized partner and member sponsored meetings. So Andy, if we think ahead for next year at DovFest, you could sponsor an AITP meet and greet at the DovFest if you wanted to. And
Man,
when is the DovFest happening? Is that
Labor Day weekend, buddy? You can ride a
weekend?
Tractor or a 4-wheeler down the parade with me.
Woohoo!
Very
That's
good.
a free perk to anybody that comes down.
Do they allow Corvettes to be in the
Yes,
parade?
sir. We would love to have your Corvette. We can register you with the Chamber of Commerce for sure. Yes.
Okay, very good. So I'll have to look at that weekend and see if I can make it down. We'll make it an unofficial AITP event this year, and then
Excellent.
and that actually is a real perk that we're trying to set up. You know, I would imagine there are not that many IT professionals in Hamilton, but if you look at the area around you, there may be an opportunity for you to have people come to your show and then have a beer or something afterwards.
I think the SpaceX COO lives out here.
Oh, does he really?
So they probably know a thing or two about computers.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. All right. So I think we're going to pass. I think we did most of the selling on the membership, but we do have quite a bit to offer and look forward to seeing you as members on Meetup. We have grown our community probably by nearly 100 people on LinkedIn. That's our primary marketing channel. So I appreciate everybody that's joined there. And if you can, that's the follower network. If you want to join and become an active member, go to Meetup. And that's what I show here. We have LinkedIn and Facebook. We have sites on both of those. And then Meetup at AITP Lone Star is the site for membership there. We've already talked about that. The final thing I'm going to leave in your mind. This is already set up on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. It will pop up on X because they don't allow you to do broadcast calendars. But you can come and hear Clay on August 15th at 7 p.m. And he's going to talk about digital experience, a little bit different than digital transformation because the experience is looking at the customer side of it, and then growing rank leadership in mergers and acquisitions. And he believes this is a crucial conversation or discussion for today's business leaders. And he's right in the middle of it as we speak. So look forward to seeing Clay. Andy, again, thank you very much for sharing such a wonderful conversation with us. Akshay and Brian, thanks for all of the things that you do to make AITP great. And I think we're going to leave just a little bit early today. So thanks very much, everybody. God bless you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
See ya.